Hey, I'm at Book Expo America. This is Rich Solomon, and I found one of the gems of rock and roll with me. We were actually looking at a book on the Ramones, but I found someone who was with a number of different people, including the Joan Jett band from when?
I played with Joan from 81 to 93.
Okay, and your name is?
Ricky Byrd.
Okay.
Guitar player.
And what brings you to Book Expo?
I'm actually doing some work for a film still archive.
Oh, wow. That's really cool. Now, I understand, because we had a little pre-production chat, that you have an album coming out?
Yeah, I'm working on a record. I've been working on it for a couple of years, and it's coming out. Well, I don't know when it's coming out, but I'll be finished hopefully by September.
Okay, and do you have a working title, or is that like a state secret?
Nah, I'll leave it out because I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
I got a couple of things written down.
All right. So where should we be looking to find it when it first comes out?
Well, this is a different business model these days, so I'm going to take advantage of a lot of internet stuff. I'm not sure how I'm going to go about it. It's going to be great music. It's all my influences that I grew up on, all original songs, but I'm wearing sort of my influences on my sleeve,
Okay.
So I'm not shying away from
so the new and the old.
In other words, like I'm not like editing like, oh, that sounds a little bit like that band. It's like, this is who I am, so that's how I'm doing it, It's a good rock and roll soul kind of record, R&B.
Do you have a website?
You can go to my Facebook page.
Okay. We were talking about Facebook. You love Facebook.
I love Facebook because I get people that came to see us, 25 years ago, finding me. Do you remember that show in Akron, Ohio, in 1981? And I'm like, yeah, sure.
Just like yesterday.
Like yesterday. I was the guy with the red shirt. I was like, yeah, I remember.
Third row, on the left.
Exactly. Yeah, perfect. I remember it all.
Wow. So if people want to find you on Facebook, what would they look for?
Just come to Ricky Byrd on Facebook.
Okay.
I'm funny. I love scanning pictures, and I'm always putting up old Blackheart pictures and all the other people I played with, Ian Hunter and Roger Daltrey, Southside Johnny. So I'm very talkative. I mean, you come on there and talk to me, I'll talk back. I like telling stories. People ask me things, and I tell stories about being on the road and this and that. I find it fascinating. I love Facebook.
Do you miss the road, or do you love the fact that you did the whole road thing and you've got things going on that are a little different now?
Actually, I don't miss the road. I miss playing a lot. But I have a daughter, an 8-year-old daughter.
Who's incredibly smart, from what I understand.
And a great musician, singer already. So
I heard you told me that she was singing in perfect pitch.
I caught her singing in the shower. She was singing "Here Comes the Sun."
That's adorable.
Yeah. But I like I'm part of this crowd of guys from bands that were in the 80s, and I get to do these cool corporate things, and I go out and fly out and do a date here or a date there, just like benefits, charity things, and the beauty of this is every time I do it, I'm playing with different people that I never played with. Simon Kirke, Chad Smith from the Chili Peppers, James Montgomery on harp. It's like every gig is different people.
Wow.
Which is cooler to me than playing in a band, because every time it's people I've always admired and always wanted to play with.
Now, I understand we were talking a little bit before that you do some things with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I do this thing every year. The Rock Hall has a benefit at the Cleveland Convention Center for education. So I just did it 2 weeks ago. I'm in the house band, and it's always Liberty DeVito on drums, myself, Jeff Carlisi from 38 Special. We're like the guys that were there every year. And then
you're the core, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Will Lee did it last year or 2 years ago. Schaefer did it 2 years ago, and we play with everybody from, Mark Farner. We did this year. We played with Ronnie Spector last year. It's like there's like 10 people, and we back everybody up, and it's always a blast. It's a lot of work leading up to it because we rehearse on our own. We all live in different parts of the country, so whoever's the MD sends us charts. And I sit there and struggle through them. I read enough not to hurt my playing, as they say. And I study them for 3 weeks, and then we get there. We rehearse the day of the show, about 11 o'clock, 12 noon. And we rehearse the day of the show, and then the concert starts, and there you go.
Does that kind of stretch your envelope because you're not playing with people you're familiar with?
No, it's great. It's great. You just look at it, it stretches you as a musician, and we've been doing this for years and years, so like I could look at, Carlisi's a friend of mine, and Lib I play with. We have a fun band called the Hit Squad.
Okay. With
the Asbury Juke horns and very Jeff Kazee from Southside's band, and we play. I got a whole list of soul songs and like everything from You Don't Know Like I Know to Hang On Sloopy. I just call them out, and we were playing the Cutting Room a bunch before it closed, but that's my fun band.
Oh wow!
Strictly fun.
So what other
No money involved.
Sadly, what other projects can we look forward to in the future while we have you here?
Dude, the record that's the one. I've been working on that. I started in 2002, and then life happens, and I put it off, and here we are. It's 2010. But meanwhile, I wrote some songs with Southside, wrote new ones by myself. Wrote a couple with my friend Richie Supa.
Okay.
A great famous songwriter who's co-wrote Amazing with Tyler. Pink.
Right.
So the time element, my meter's not running, dude. So
does that give you a chance to do it at your own pace that you didn't have before?
Oh yeah, man. I have a Pro Tools thing in my basement. I started it in Nashville with Ray Kennedy, Steve Earle's partner. So I started it at that studio. And then I came back here and I'm doing part of it. I'm doing the rhythm tracks out of the studio in Huntington, Pro Tools studio. Then we come back to my house and I play in my basement. I got, I put the amp in the bathroom and I sing, bring over an expensive mic. It's amazing what you can do today, and it sounds, so far I've done 2 tracks. I did the first 6 tracks back in 2002, or 5 tracks, and now I got 2 tracks pretty much done. I got to put horns on something. And it sounds, dude, I listen to it and I'm like, I love it.
Do you ever fantasize about what it would have been like to have had today's technology back then?
Yeah, that's a whole other story. I mean, some people can't stand the sound. They're convinced they can hear the difference between Pro Tools digital and audio, like the hiss on the records. And yeah, you can. I mean, all I care about is if the songs are good.
Yeah.
You could scratch it out on concrete with a freaking chisel, and that'll be fine. Just have good songs. Crappy songs sound bad on
no matter what medium.
Yeah. So it doesn't bother me, and it's what. It's monetarily, this is the way to go. Hardly anybody's using tape anymore, and there's ways to manipulate it where it winds up, you throw it into a trash can after you finish, and it comes out sounding a little bit like an album. But you got to move forward, man. It's not 1978.
Do you think there's a loss in the sense that people aren't buying albums so much as they're buying songs now? Because growing up, I remember you bought an album and you listened to the entire album. Now people pop off a song here and there.
You know what? You got to be able to adapt. It's like a pitcher, in the major leagues who doesn't have a fastball anymore,
right.
And so he has to learn to manipulate his curveball. You got to work at different speeds. It's 2010. It's a different recording. There's no record companies left. It's a whole other world. So you just have to adapt, or you just curl
or
up
perish.
Right? You have to adapt.
Absolutely.
By the way,
I mean, it's not 1978, so you have to do it. The business model's changed. My hopes internet. But my hopes and dreams, for all the downside of what's going on now, for a guy like me, for my age and what I do, there's so many other options. There's, like you said, the internet. So people automatically, I post it on Facebook or MySpace. Somebody in Scandinavia sitting in his house can hear a cut from my track. Yeah,
right.
No record company involved.
Right, and no one could have done that 30 years ago.
No. And there's movies now. There's soundtracks. There's they're using commercials now. Like he was talking about the Ramones being on commercials now.
But that's Monte Melnick who's wrote "On the Road with the Ramones."
Well, so many of the commercials now, the jingle business is all but dead because people stopped hiring people to write jingles, and they're licensing a lot of these old songs, or they're licensing original material. So all these things are a plus for artists of today. So with the negatives, there's pluses. I have no problem seeing record companies go down the tubes.
There you go.
I mean, if you want to dance, you got to pay the band, and now they're paying the band.
And that's right. And
it's about time the band got paid.
It is about time.
Yeah.
It's slow justice, but just as well time.
There's a lot of nice people in the music business and the record companies, and there's a lot of people that knew nothing about music that just got jobs. They got lucky. They signed somebody that got big, and it's the cycle, mate.
Exactly. So I got to ask you one last question. How did you kind of first get into the whole music scene? What was there like,
I was just like everybody. I grew up in the Bronx watching the Ed Sullivan Show, saw the Rolling Stones, end of story.
Oh, there you go. And did you gravitate to one particular instrument right away? Did you work your way through a few things, or?
Well, without doing a 20-minute recitation here. So the Rolling Stones. Love the Rolling Stones. I see something in them that reminds me of me, right? Something in their vibe. I love the Beatles too, but the Stones, there was something below the waist about them. Right?
Exactly. A little grittier.
Then I read magazines and I see they love Muddy Waters and Otis Redding and this and that, and I start getting like, who are these people? And that's how I found those guys, by reading what Keith and Mick and Brian liked. I went back and I found these people. And that's the whole story. That's what history's about, right?
In fact, speaking of history, I actually was lucky enough to see Muddy Waters on tour with Clapton many years ago when he was, it was quite a concert.
We can't get into this now, but I've had a million great experiences on the road, playing with Rufus, doing Walking the Dog with Rufus Thomas, or I mean, my career I've been blessed to have a wonderful career. I've played with a lot of my idols. I did, a guy that waited online for 4 hours at Forest Hills Tennis Stadium to see The Who. I wound up doing a record with Roger and being his friend. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, and playing all the young dudes with Ian Hunter. And, I got nothing to complain about. So up to now, it's been amazing.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you ever want to come to the station, and we're out in Brookville, come on by and you can, we'll do a whole hour.
It sounds good.
I'll give you my card.
My records.
Yeah, you'll come by.
Awesome to talk about.
All right, perfect. Thanks a lot. Ricky Byrd, look for his record. I guess they don't call it, I don't think they call them records anymore. I think they call it music.
One thing for sure, it's not a Blackheart record. My music is, I grew up on the Stones, Al Green, Otis Redding, the Faces. That's what I love.
Stuff that I listen to. Yeah.
So people sometimes think it's going to be like a Blackheart kind of thing, but I was the guy in the Blackheart that had that other influence.
Right. So you pulled them in a little bit more of a different direction.
I think so. My guitar playing was not as glitter. Joan grew up on certain things. I grew up on other things. So I brought my influences, and that's like my guitar break on I Love Rock and Roll. It's not a blues break, but it's what I listen to. It's
right.
me doing a little bit of Leslie West. It's the stuff that I grew up on.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I wish you the best of luck.
Thanks, sir.
And,
nice talking to you.
Let me get a picture. And this is Rich Salmon. We'll be right back.
Okay.